And we're live.
Are we?
We are.
Hi, everyone. It's Sarithkin from Montier. Welcome to the Sisters Interview. Tonight, we have the very special privilege of hosting Her Grace, Duchess Helga Skaldmere, Order of the Pelican, Knight of the SCA, General Badass and sassy, fierce woman. So thank you for joining us. We're really excited to have you. And
thank you for having me on. Like, I'm really like, I'm just like, oh wait, hang on. I do this every week and watch me stumble over myself this entire time. But I'm actually super excited to be on your guys' show. I am an avid follower. I think that your guys' interviews are just amazing to watch. And so I want to say thank you both very much for honoring me by having me on as a guest.
Well, it's definitely our pleasure. So you've seen these before, so you know we start with your origin story. So if you can tell us your origin story, that would be awesome.
So origin story within the SCA is I think I was 14 or 15 writing. So I grew up in a very small town. I would like it known that we had 2,000 people in that town on a good day. And there was a couple guys in one of our local parks fighting. And I have played with stick fighting my entire life. And so I'm like riding my bike along and I see these guys in like terrible armor beating the hell out of each other and hit the brakes, U-turn. And so I started hanging out with them. And well, part of my origin story is I totally faked my ID to be 16. I had already done it to be on a logging job.
How old were you really?
I was 15.
Okay. So not too
And so there was just a couple fighters, and then I drug all my friends into it. Actually, my best friend from high school, James, is now a knight. He was knighted. He is the knight made before me in my kingdom.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And so we started fighting right around the same time. And so I started fighting off and on, and there was a large amount of drama about that small group because all small towns have drama. But what ended up happening because of that drama, I landed in Mari's circle and Havek's circle. And basically they were like, here, a cute little wild thing that we're not quite sure. Like I was like a feral cat pretty much at that point in time in my life. And they were just like, just come here. Like, we'll figure this shit out. Fine. And so I landed in with that group. So I went from a very fringy household that was very insular to basically mainstream SCA by the time I was 16. And so I fought for I was in a wreck 9 months later where I had a horse rip out both my shoulder sockets. And so that ended my fighting career for almost 10 years. But I got to like kind of fight off and on in there. But my origin story is kind of just like that really weird feral kitten that was adopted. They left out a food plate. I learned how to eat with the normal humans. And here I am today. Still mostly feral, but you know, I've got a better vocabulary and I can throw a better flat step.
So you have like suffered through quite a few injuries. How do you think that has affected you as a fighter? Like, do you think it's made you a better analytical fighter because you had to like watch a lot, or?
Oh yeah. Overall, my injuries, I wouldn't be the fighter I was today without my injuries. I grew up a very strong ranch girl, and I learned how to fight from very shoulder heavy guys. And so I fought very like upper body, very heavy-handed, very forward fighting. I'm 5'6" on a good day. But I learned, like, I threw around livestock for a living. I've got no problem knocking over a 6 foot plus guy. Like, that's fine. You're on 2 legs, not 4. Like half of the energy to put you on your ass. And the injuries cold stopped that. Because I couldn't touch my own face for a year. And so I recovered enough from the injuries to get back into fighting on the regular basis. Like we modified my gear, we modified what I was fighting with. We did a lot of stuff to get around the damage, and I had to learn how to generate power better. And I had to learn how to basically fight with a dead arm. And so from there, I redeveloped my mechanics completely. And then I was actually in a fighting accident where I got wrapped by a lefty in the elbow. And all mechanics aside, it was nobody was hitting excessive. It was everything went wrong at the same time, and it drove the edge of my elbow cup through my triceps tendon.
Ouch.
And that hit the reset button again. So I've had to restart my fighting a couple times. But that was actually probably the best thing ever to happen to me. I was already in a very high-end circle of fighters where analyzing the fight was key to everything that we did. We always sat down and talked about it. And so all that was instilled in me beforehand. And then I spent 3.5 years I was in the upper tier unbelt pool I couldn't touch my own face. So I spent 3 years watching video and having my friends send me video and analyzing it and sending it back and geeking with Sean, because I would send Sean stuff or he'd send me stuff and be like, what are you seeing? And then like we would redevelop how I was seeing the fight, knowing that when I came back, I was going to have to start from scratch again. And so we basically built as many tools as possible for when I got back in. And then when I got back in, it got it to where if I was watching video of myself, I could correct issues so much faster, because I came in after 4 surgeries and breaking my back. And so I came in and like we would just watch video and be like, this is where you're guarding this joint. Cool. Like reverse this entire process. We have to get back into motion through the joint. And so now I can see that in other people because I got to experience it. I got to like from the ground up restart my fighting so hardcore that like when somebody's guarding a joint or they've got an injury, I could be like, hey, by the way, your left hip, like you can't throw through this because you're guarding that. When did you injure it and how have you rehabbed it? So I think in the end, it made me a much better fighter and it's made me a much better analyst. I don't recommend learning that way. It sucks.
When a lot of people get injured, they have a hard time staying motivated and staying engaged in the SCA, especially when fighting is their main geek. Besides analyzing fighting, how did you stay engaged and stay motivated?
Sheer rage.
Right. All right. That's a good motivator.
Yeah. I'm really, really stubborn, like really stubborn. And I was getting good enough before the injury to be effective and to start having that like little taste of success, and then having it taken away right at that, like getting that little taste of success. I was like, oh no, this is not where this ends. And also to be really, really honest, in that 3 years, I gave up multiple times. I had to lean on some friends really, really hard in the process. Also, I was kind of given the golden gift of in the West Kingdom at that point in time, right before I got injured, I started meet and beat.
Right.
Because the West Kingdoms, I'm trying to think of how to put this like politically and nicely. We were a motherfucking shit show when it came to the communication between the knights and the unbelts. And it was turning into a very toxic culture. And I got spoiled and I got to go to Sport of Kings and I went, fuck, this is amazing. And so I basically mimicked that concept and made it mini. Just like a day event. Everybody set their damn egos aside. Yes, we have a communication problem, and I'm so tired of everybody bitching that, oh, the knights aren't training me, or like the squires won't come to me. Well, fine, fuck you. I will make a platform where this happens. And with a lot of help from some amazing people, a lot of knights stepped up to help, a lot of unbelts stepped out of their own shells. Like everybody magically got out of their own way. And it was really cool to see. And then I got injured. So the first one went off. It was a super high success. We got really good feedback and I got injured. And so what I did is I obsessed on them every 6 months. I gave myself the goal of I need to keep doing this because it's giving back to the community. And it's what kind of kept me focused and going and engaged in the fighting community instead of falling into despair. And in the process, because for a while, the first surgery, they missed a bunch in my elbow. So they drove I've got a 3-inch pin in my tricep tendon where they cut it off and then they reattached it and they did a bunch of weird shit in my elbow and then they missed stuff. And so when I was going through PT, I was failing out of PT. I couldn't get my arm past this. I had one surgeon tell me, hey, you're never fighting again. Like there's nothing we can do. I had to get a second surgeon who was just like, no, they missed shit. And so I kept having to restart these processes and every time it just got harder and harder and harder. But that event actually turned into the thing that kept like waking me back up out of that. And so really I just found ways to continue like moving forward with a little bit of spite. Just like, I'm gonna get back to this thing that I really love to do, but I had to give myself external reasons to do it. I had to like look at the fighting community to keep doing it and say, I can give back to a community I may never be able to be a part of again. And somebody else can take my place. So
His Grace Sean says it was spite sprinkles.
Yeah, it was definitely spite sprinkles. Pretty much that's how I run my universe. Somebody tells me you're not going to make it back, and I go,
yeah, I'm the same way. I remember after I had my baby, the guy who knighted me said, "It's okay, Misty. You know, sometimes people don't get better after they get knighted." And I was like,
so much that, so much that.
Yeah. So I get that, but I want to go back to something you said, because you said something about how magically everybody started getting out of their own way and helping each other. And I want to go back, because it's not magic, right? Like you created a platform where people could go without ego and learn and teach and exchange information. So that's not magic, that's hard work. So I just have to acknowledge that, because I can self-deprecate all I want myself, but I don't let other people do it. So there.
The reason why I look at it as kind of like magic is the platform had already been built. It had been tried and tested in on tier. And so it was kind of like cheat codes. It's like when you go and you're like, you want to play a video game and you're like, well, I don't really want to start at like level 1. Fuck it, I'm going to go look up the cheat codes. And so there was already a platform that was made and a mentality that went along with that platform. So it was basically stealing marketing.
Well, there was
like,
a structure that you could take and make it your own in your own kingdom.
Well,
it's still a hell of a lot of work.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah. But most Western fighters, like most of the heavy end fighters, had been to that platform. So they already knew that when they walked into it, there was a certain mentality. And so it was a really good excuse and a really easy way to kind of subtly manipulate the population into just being like, well, but this is the expectation for this. And so come do it. And then I was really happy that everybody met that expectation. And everybody had a great time. It was a blast. The first one was just, it was like the perfect moment when you just walk out there and you're like, there is 75 fighters in armor and there is no ego out here. What is going on right now? This is so cool.
So I have a question. You started playing when you were 15.
Mm-hmm.
You've basically been raised in the SCA. I don't think I would have survived. How have you I mean, you had good role models, I guess. You had people help you redirect. What's that like to grow up stubborn in the SCA?
Stubborn in the SCA is actually a gift. So I grew up in a relatively rough home life where I love my parents to death. I definitely grew up. The SCA kind of saved me from some very bad choices. And I was already an independent little asshole. Like I was definitely a latchkey kid, and I was very much so like survival oriented. And so the SCA was like the golden ticket for me, where it gave me a structure and it gave me an ideal. Like you walk into a place and you're like, I want to be a knight. And then it gave me a clean character sheet. Nobody knew that, I was poor enough at that point in my life. I was scrounging roadkill to make sure that there was meat on our table at home. Like nobody knew any of that unless I said anything. Like walked in, clean character sheet. Nobody knew shit. And so it gave me a way to be better and then explore the idea of being better and then looking at myself and being like, cool, okay. So on the weekends, I figured out how to be this person. Now, how do I make a plan to get there in real life? And then I fell into line of having some amazing role models, and some amazing role models that were smarter than me at 15 and understanding that I was a fucking starving kid, that then gave me the opportunity to reach and started teaching me the tools on how to, like, cool, you want to be this in real life? These are the lessons you need to learn. Like, come hang out with us for a week down at our house and we'll fight train, but we'll also make sure that we're going to go shopping and like maybe buy you a set of shoes. And so I was very, very spoiled with the people that I fell into. And then as I kind of like, everybody has that issue as they transition into like the adult in the SCA. A lot of people within the SCA want to keep their children. Like we only see each other on weekends. And so a year can pass in real life, but it's only been 3 or 4 weekends in the SCA. And so we do a disservice to a lot of our youth of not recognizing that a year has passed and how much they've matured. And occasionally I would just throw that in people's faces. Spite sprinkles. And so when they would try to stick me in a box, I would just be like, go fuck yourself in your box. I still love you. I still love you a lot. And I'm going to honor what you did to me, did for me and how much you saved me as a child. But understand that I'm an adult now and we can have these adult conversations. And I would literally be that blunt with them. Like, awesome. I pay my own rent and I bought my own vehicle. Like, you need to stop treating me like this kid that you rescued at this point in time. Honor what you did for me. Please honor what you did for me and understand that I honor what you did for me, but you can't ever hold it over me. Because if you do, now you're actually the enemy. Because now you're acting like I owe you versus anything else. And that conversation happened a couple times and people stopped, like hard stopped with it. And I mean, it really comes down to I'm a little bit of a forceful personality. It definitely was a problem for a little while. And then I took mediation training and I actually spent a lot of time in college taking mediation training and psychology classes and everything else like that to address those behaviors in myself so I didn't turn into a toxic individual. But yeah, I think had I not had the personality that I did, I would have had a much harder time like developing past that age bracket. Which is
that role of the rescuee, that's something that's really easy to get trapped in and for people to continue to treat you like that.
Yeah, well, and that's the cool thing about the West is there's a lot of very like in the West, if you were on my show we'd all have to drink, is there's a lot of very mature like role models that will actually call each other on it. So especially right now, we've got a ton of youth combatants that are coming into age of like transitioning over into that heavy fighting category. And luckily enough, there was a bunch of kids kind of like me. There was like a pack of us, like no joke. Like we were like feral dogs for a little while. But all of those kids are now interacting with us and all the peers that had to deal with us kind of throwing it in their face of like, hey, we're adults now and you get to treat us like adults. Like, yes, you have years and experience on us, but don't talk to us like we're 9, like not going to fly. And so I think realistically, I would like to say that the West is actually becoming much more mature in handling that transition without holding the kids to like this perceived age. Which is making me really happy. Like, and I think we're going to see a lot more youth fighters stay because of it. I went down a rabbit hole there. I'm really sorry.
No, I kind of wanted you to. We both have kids in the SCA, and we've watched. I'm thinking of Duke Eric go from being, people like to tell him that they changed his diapers. It's like, come on, don't say that to him.
Yeah.
He's a grown man now.
It's also ageist, amusingly enough. Like that's the one thing that I remind people is they're choosing to use that as a PowerPoint. Like I saw you when you were incapable of doing something else instead of honoring where they are right now. Like look at the person and honor where they are. Yeah. It's also the same thing that we do with injured fighters. We're going to go right back to the injured fighter thing because I actually have a little bit of a soapbox on this. I got told over and over and over again, you have to prove that you're better than your injury. We do the same thing to our kids. Our kids fuck up and then they're on this continual path of you must prove yourself against this like one stupid bullshit thing you did. Cool, great. Like we were all 16 at one point. Like I guarantee all of us did stupid things. Just some of us got caught and some of us didn't. And so that's something to always remember with both injured fighters and our youth is stop having them prove themselves against whatever perceived low point you're holding them to. Instead, look at them right now. Where have they gone? What are they doing? What have they improved past? That's how to build community.
So I think like in the West, it's sort of a unique situation because it's so steeped in history and tradition. And then you have people like you that come up and were raised in the SCA that have new ideas and that have been put in positions where you have the power to implement new ideas. How do you think it's received, and how have you finagled or massaged it so that you can do that without stomping on tradition or saying, hey, change is good?
Only partially successfully. I have a thing of honor people, respect tradition, and when tradition stops respecting the people, it's time for it to change. And so one of the things is we must remember that the populace is the power base. And I will give a good example, and then I will give a Raya as a terrible human example. Or Helga is a terrible human, whichever name you want to call me on this one, is when we remember that the populace is going to back whatever we do. It's the reason why I think that faith is one of the profound virtues, and it's also the most fragile, and it's the most easily abused, is because when you're charismatic and you have the faith of people, they will follow you and they will do things. And so that's how tradition is. Tradition is faith to a dead ancestor. That's what it is. And so one of the things is to change tradition, you change who the focus is. You change a couple repetitions and tradition changes, because the human mind just tracks that change and goes, oh, well, we've always done it this way. So to change tradition, you literally just get a big enough group of people doing it, and it starts turning into the normal. To do it in a healthy fashion, you do it in a way that mimics and honors the old tradition and updates it. So you're keeping pieces and parts of it. You speak to those same words, you speak to the same actions, you honor the people that did it before you, and then you put a little bit of a twist on it. Like you turn it into the next thing, you turn it into the next piece for the generation. To do it in a non-healthy way, you literally just get the entire populace to stand up and say, fuck you, and do it anyways. And in about 3 years in the SCA, it turns into tradition. And the younger the group is, the more they're going to do it, the faster they're going to do it. And so that's one of the things that we actually have to watch out for, is because that's how we actually break old traditions without actually honoring them. And so one of the things I'll say is I've done it partially successfully. And that's because I've also networked a lot with the older peers. And I try to sit and learn why a tradition exists. If I don't understand a tradition, I'll go find the person that started it. And like, if it involves a phone call or like driving to a house or buying dinner, why did we do this in AS5? Like, what came up? Like, why does the West traditionally drop an arm in a tournament? Like, if you arm your other opponent, because the dude that originally did it got tired, and the populace then loved it. He got so much positive feedback for doing that because while he was tired, the populace saw him as chivalrous. And so that turned into this really like heavily hung on to tradition in the West, which I practice flat out, because you want to know what? It's a show for the populace anyways. But I wanted to understand why we did it, because nobody could tell me where it came from. So I went like, let me go talk to Fleeg, let me go talk to Ellis, let me go talk to all these people. Like, where the hell did this come from? And I got down to, this is how it started. But because I know how it started, it also gives me more power in understanding why. Like, we do it because the populace thought it was chivalric, not the fighters. The fighters didn't do it out of chivalry. They did it out of being fucking lazy.
Like, look at the way that has like morphed and grown. And so now, like, even in Ontier in the West, I think both, we don't even target arms. Mm-hmm. It's considered rude.
Yep.
And we go anywhere else in the known world and we're at a disadvantage. Yep. Because we're not used to having our arm targeted, and we're not targeting their arms when they're available. So it's kind of interesting that you went back and found that source, because I've always heard, oh, it's too hard to armor the arm, that's why we don't go for it. You know, you don't want to hurt your opponent.
No, it was considered lazy, or it's not considered lazy. It was considered chivalric to drop your shield, and then people were like, I don't want to fight single stick. And so that's kind of how it turned into it. And then it turned into this more chivalric ideal where, like, and that's one of the things that traditions morph like that. Like, why do we do this thing? And find the story and find the reality, and then you actually know how to change tradition. Because you must understand the reality and the story, because if you don't have both points of that information, somebody's going to fight back. And somebody's always going to fight back about changing tradition, by the way, or changing like a rote behavior is pretty much. And that's also weird soapbox again. Like, there's a difference between tradition and honoring tradition and rote acceptable behavior. Rote acceptable behavior is actually much harder to break than tradition, because it's actually brainwashing. So it's something that we have to watch out for in the SCA. Just because it's very easy to like make a story and then somebody would be like, well, that sounds cool. And then it turns into like the fucking thing. And you're like,
This happened.
how did this turn into the thing?
So I have sort of like a deeper question for you, because one of the things I struggled with after I got knighted was I had these ideals, and I had sort of an idea in my head of like what we should be doing or what we aren't doing and what we could do better. And I felt like at some point I cared too much, and it hurt. It hurt to care that much. And there was this like weird way to find a line where you could care just enough that you're still engaged, but not enough that your heart hurt and that you wanted to disappear. And you're so passionate and so invested in your beliefs and the things you think are right. I wonder, how do you straddle that line without getting disillusioned?
You're gonna get the real answer, and it's not fun.
Okay, I like real.
Yeah.
Being knighted broke my heart. And I didn't understand. So when I was offered, I told Uther, I must go think about this, because one, I didn't think I had the fighting prowess actually to be knighted at that point in time, and I was worried that I was popular versus being a good knight candidate. And so Havek and I went for a walk, and he slapped me behind the head. He said, "You're ready to do this." And then after I said yes, he gave me a hug with tears in his eyes, and he said, "I'm sorry that I cannot prepare you for the next part of this that's going to go on." And I, being an egotistical little creature, said, "I got this. Like, I've been a peer before. I understand the silence after you get like made a peer, and how like the deafness that happens. Like, I got this. Like, we're good. I'm like emotionally prepared for this happening now." I was not, because so many of my heroes are fucking cowards and jackasses. And I went from looking at the knights and seeing many of my very close friends are the ideal knight. I'm very, very spoiled in the people. And like, that's one of the things I want to be clear about, is I understand that my little weird SCA bubble, I'm very spoiled by the peers and non-peers I'm associated with. And so all of a sudden being exposed to the larger bracket of the chivalry, I was like, you have a white belt and an attitude and have no fucking understanding of what the damage you cause every time you open your mouth. Like, can you hand your shit back in? Fuck. I know squires with better manners than you that, like, when they're drunk, like, go fuck yourself. And so because I run off spite sprinkles, the first year was really, really hard. I actually wrote a letter to the bod. I never sent it, surrendering all my peerages. I was just going to say, fuck this. I'm a better unbelt. And they can all just fuck off. Like, I don't care. They're not rescuable, and they're not worth being a part of. And not for the good ones, but I saw so many of the people causing damage. Also, I would like to note that I was knighted right in the middle of the Me Too movement. That was a bad idea. Holy crap. That's when all the knights were, I have many feelings about the cowardice that went along with that. And so I wrote the letter, and then I didn't send it, because I had like serendipity, had a message show up from one of the unbelts that said, "Whatever you do, don't stop." Because at this point in time, I was calling knights out. I was very active online when the knights would stand up and be like, "Well, but I'll defend this." No, you won't. No, you're a fucking coward. Sit the fuck down. If you're not actually willing to bleed over this, sit the fuck down, because you're not going to defend that girl that got touched in the middle of the party. You're saying that to wank your own ego and to think that you're that thing. And I said that in the middle of a chat board that was very public and told a dude to step off. And I got this message from a girl that I don't even know. And she said, please, whatever you do, don't ever stop. Like, I realize that all the knights right now are seen as these terrible things, and then you'll do shit like that. And you're giving us faith and you're giving us hope. And that's really fucked up to carry, by the way, because I am not the best individual. I've done some terrible shit in my life. And there are so many good knights out there, and there are so many good peers out there. The SCA is full of them. But so many of them are quiet. And so many of them are these gentle souls. And I am not a gentle soul. Like, there's days I wish I was a gentler soul. But also, I was the girl that was manhandled at a party one time and then left when a bunch of knights laughed it off. And I refuse to have anybody ever feel like that. And so when I falter, when I look at some of our brothers and say, you are not a knight, you are a fraud. Why the fuck am I choosing to stand here with you? Because it's pooled renown. I remember that message. And then I remember meeting her. And her telling me it was going to be all right. Like, I'm the knight. I was supposed to be the one that's going to carry her. And at that moment in time, she literally stopped me from quitting. And so shitty things will be done. And pooled renown is a thing. And many of us need to remember that. So many of us need to remember that every day. Especially when we pick up a keyboard and we're angry. Like, for fuck's sake.
I think you writing that letter to the bot and not sending it, a lot of people need to sort of take that, because it's very cathartic to write it all out, to get it all out, to have your say, and then just put it away. Like, yeah. You don't actually need to share it for it to be cathartic.
Yeah. Well, and so what I'll just say is that when you have passionate people, remind them to stay passionate in why they are. And I'm not perfect, and I will never be the perfect knight. I am no Percival. I am way more like Kay. Well, like, I am an attitude-filled asshole.
I think something that everyone needs to acknowledge is there's not a perfect knight. We're all imperfect people, and we're perfectly imperfect.
Yep.
And we will be somebody's paragon of chivalry, and we'll be somebody's, villain. Like, the same person. And that's just the way it is. You can't make everyone happy, but you have to be true to what's in your heart. Like, that's where I sort of ended up, is that I had to be true to what's in my heart. And if all of us that are disillusioned or get to the point where we're like, I don't want to be part of this group because I can't hold them all in the same, like, where I think they should be, then you lose the people that are actually trying to take the group to where maybe it could be. Like, we can always be better, I think. And people like you keep us going in that direction.
No. Well, I'll say that there are many more gentle, good souls in all the peerages than there are the assholes. The assholes are just willing to put it down. And we just have to remember that the hero and villain thing is actually my favorite thing. Is there's a psychology cycle of the hero, victim, villain cycle. We're all going to go through it. We're all going to be in those stages at any point in time. And in anybody else's story, we're going to fit one of those three arcs. We will either be the hero of the story, we will be the villain of the story, or we'll be the victim of the story if we are one of the main characters. Otherwise, we're fucking NPCs, and who cares? But that's one of the things that, I mean, realistically, if I was going to quit my belt at this point in time, because spite sprinkles for the win, I'd just organize a mass walkout, and I would do it with hundreds of other knights. And it would be very targeted. It would be like, cool, great, no, we're done. We're done with these people not being handled. Like, all the proper channels were dealt with. We're going on strike. Here's our shit. Like, we're still going to show up, and all of us can kick each other's asses without any of this regalia or the meetings. But at this point in time, I think that it does more damage when just one of us leaves than it does if we choose to stay and fight for what's right and being very open and honest about that.
And I think something that's important to remember, and you sort of touched on it, is that there really is a silent majority that are more like you than aren't like you, that don't talk. And it comes off like when you feel like you're always doing, like having the laboring oar of where you think the boat should be going and nobody else is talking, you feel very alone. But I do believe that there's a silent majority of really good people in each of the peerages, and that, you know, we get judged by the vocal minority. That's what I think.
The assholes are just really loud.
There you go.
I always try to use, there's one thing that I try to live by, is be just as loud as the assholes, but more eloquent and more loving.
Well, we sort of went down a hole, but that's
okay.
okay.
I'm like, I'm really sorry, and like I've now cried on camera, so
Yeah. Woohoo! Good job.
my squire messaged me and was like, best night. I was like, oh god.
I think it helps though to be honest about these kinds of things, because I think a lot of people feel alone in sort of like just their disillusionment. One of my friends, actually somebody I gave spurs to, resigned their belt, and it was so disheartening for me, because I was just like, you know, fight the fight, just fight the fight, please fight the fight. Mm-hmm. But you know, and I get opting out, I get it, but it's hard.
Yeah. I wish there was a way to opt, like, amusingly enough, like, to go off a different weird rabbit hole for a moment. I wish there was a way to opt out of peerages, like almost age out of peerages, with grace. We don't actually have that established in the SCA. And so, like, when a knight retires, everybody assumes they rage quit. When a laurel just disappears, everybody assumes they just, like, they gave up. If versus being like, age and time have taken away my ability to properly fill this role as an active peer. We don't have like an inactive peer status. And I would love it if there was that way to basically age out with grace.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. And I like, if I could make something, and I haven't figured that out yet, I've been grinding on it for like a year and a half, that I'm just like, I wish that is a gift that we had for our older peers, especially as our society ages.
Yeah. Our good friend Attias resigned his laurel because he just didn't feel that the peerage fit him. And he still teaches, he's still a talented artist. And there's this cycle every few years that comes around where we have to fight the battle of leave Attias the fuck alone. He doesn't want to be a laurel.
Yeah, just hard no.
Just leave it be, you know? Anyway.
I was gonna say too, like, I don't even know if we need a category for people that are aging out. I think that you can decide that the way you're going to be a laurel is different than what people expect of you. Like, maybe your thing is not going to meetings and you know, gatekeepering or not even gatekeepering, but you know, advocating for candidates. Your thing is just teaching. You just want to teach. That's what you're going to do. Cool. And there shouldn't be judgment in that. I think, like, if you're still doing the part that you think you do the best, then you shouldn't have to spread yourself thin on parts that hurt your soul.
Yeah, that kill your soul.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because you know, I think it's a little bit more prevalent, like with knights, because once they can't fight, a lot of them wrongly feel irrelevant. And I wish that I wish they would just be like, hey, okay, so you're not fighting anymore, but there's all these other parts to knighthood that you can still do, and you're still totally relevant. Like, one thing from these Duke interviews that I've, you know, not learned, but like, it's like re-sparked something in me, is they have so many stories to tell, and they can tell us where we came from and why we came from there, and the evolution of our sport. Mm-hmm. And they still have a ton to teach. So
it's actually one reason that I hold Fleeg in such high regard is Fleeg is still here.
Yeah.
So I got, sadly and greatly, I got to be one of Fleeg's last fights. He gave me that gift, and it was an absolute riot, because that dude, but I have never seen anybody throw so slow and hit you so hard. Like, just I blocked that 4 times and still missed. How did this work? But he's still out there. And if you, well, he's a little quieter on the training front because fighting has evolved so much from where he was. He will still sit and debate the virtues, and he will still bring, like, he'll go out and dance, and he contributes and he gives and he keeps that alive. And realistically is one of the things that I think the injury was really good for me, is I am fighting on a shortened timeline. Like, I have pins and cadaver parts in my right arm, and there's still functional damage in there. There's days where I don't have feeling in my hand because the nerve damage is bad enough. And someday it's going to get bad enough that I don't get to fight anymore. Which is the reason why I try to make sure that I stay up with the video analysis or like new techniques or stuff like that, because watching from the sidelines and teaching our next generation to replace us is the best gift we can give as knights, whether we're fighting or not. Don't give up your pool of knowledge because you can't be out there swinging your dick and proving that, you know, you're worthy of it. Guess what? You already have your knight's belt and chain. At one point you were worthy of it. Keep going, motherfucker.
Well, and even if your prowess isn't there anymore, you're still worthy of it. Like you were worthy, you're gonna stay worthy and develop yourself in the other areas to still feel worthy in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Agreed.
Indeed.
Okay. So should we talk about something lighter?
Well, I don't know. Like, this has been really cathartic for me. I hope that yeah.
That's like, there's just been so much pent up emotion the last few days that it was kind of nice to have a good cry. Thank you.
You're welcome. The last few days have been chaotic.
Yeah, they've kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we haven't talked about your Pelican journey at all. Tell us about that.
We're gonna go right back to spite sprinkles. So I was made a Pelican. Okay, so my queen, who gave me my Pelican, I asked her, I'm doing stuff for the fighting community, and at this point in time, I was definitely raging against the establishment in my early 20s, like rage against the establishment. And it turned into I'm basically like an organization / charismatic pal of, I'm like, hey, we should paint this white fence, and I Tom Sawyer the fuck out of it, and then we go do it. But my queen told me, by the way, you're getting your Pelican and telling the establishment to go fuck itself. Because at that point in time, like, there was a status quo, and then I was there, and I'm like, this status quo is not great for the community. Like, so why do we have this status quo? How about go fuck yourself? And this is where a little bit of the negative, like, team building that I did of I kind of mob ruled a bunch of the unbelts, and the knights would be like, that's a bad idea, and I'd be like, go fuck yourself, I have a bigger army. And I would go do the thing, and then all the unbelts would go do it with me, and their consorts would go do it with me, and then we would establish kind of a new version of what was going on. And then the knights would be like, motherfucker, and then they would come join. And so that was basically, I got my Pelican in, like, crowdsourcing. And it was definitely a rough journey, I'll tell you that. I was not, well, I passed council. I was not exactly a popular candidate for getting my Pel. It was not unanimous at all. And I was told over and over and over in my vigil, you're too young for this, you're too wild for this, you're too this, you're too that, blah, blah, you know, too ... fill in the fucking blank. And one of the coolest things about that vigil is I sat and I had those conversations with them where, like, cool, like, I'm to this. Tell me actually why. You have given me a sentence. I would like your empirical data on all this. Like, why is this actually affecting you? Like, how has this been a negative effect? How has it been a positive effect? And we actually started building conversations around that. So my vigil was like a really, really cool experience because I had multiple people walk in and be like, you shouldn't be a peer. okay, like a vigil happens for a reason. I can still tell the king no tomorrow, but we're gonna have a real conversation about this.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually really glad it was a rough experience because it made me grow so much as an individual. But yeah, I think one time I got told I was above my station.
I've been told that.
Yeah, that's where I pretty much discovered I was probably never going to be a knight, because it was a group of knights that I got told you are above your station, and I said maybe you should rise to yours, and walked off. I definitely have an attitude problem, by the way.
Okay, so I'm glad that vigil like made you grow, but it makes me angry, like, because I feel like when the king says, I'm going to elevate this person, you need to hold your tongue and make that person the best peer they can be. You don't tell them why they shouldn't be. You get in there and help them grow the way you think they should be. Like, I just, like, why go and ruin somebody's, like, for a lot of people, I mean, their AOA is the big thing, but for peer, I mean, most people aren't double peers, triple peers, quadruple peers, you know, this is their one, like, wedding thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why go shit on it? Like, I just never understood that.
Because I think most people don't actually have the skills or the knowledge to articulate what they're trying to say. And so I totally agree with you on this of, you should, if you are going to say something like that, you should be able to articulate why. I was just lucky enough to have the skills to force them to do that. Where, like, cool, you think I'm not ready? Let's have this conversation. We're really going to have this conversation. And I'd walk out, I'd tell my timekeeper, turn off the clock, hand everybody else a beer. We're sitting here and having this conversation. And that's one of the things that's the reason why I think it was so much of a growth thing for me. Because at that point in time, I was already dealing with mediation training and everything else like that. But I wanted to know. And it's a little bit spite sprinkly on that of, if I know why, I know what they're bringing on the table. Like, put all your cards on the table, motherfucker. I'm going to make you fold. But that's one of the things that, realistic, when you're giving feedback, make sure you have the skills to give real feedback and not be a toxic motherfucker about it. Yeah. Go read some communication manuals. Like, you can get them on audiobook now. Like, it'll take 10 hours of your life while you're driving somewhere, and it'll up your skills so you can actually help people grow as peers, versus like making their first year just hell, where they now second guess everything.
Well, and it's not just the first year. I'm not going to use names, but you know, I've been interviewing a lot of Laurels, and one of the Laurels that I interviewed has been a Laurel for longer than I have, and still carries the stigma they feel over not being approved by the council.
Oh, they should read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It'll help.
They should never have known that they were not fully approved by the council. They should never have known that.
That's what I think too. Like, that's council stuff, and you're not supposed to bring it outside of council. I mean, it would be different if it was like your Laurel or your knight saying, hey, you know, the king chose to do this. I want you to know that there might be some people that aren't totally on board with it, but that's their problem, not your problem. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's wrong to stigmatize somebody's elevation like that, because people that aren't as tough as you internalize that, and they self-doubt themselves forever.
Decades.
And you've taken, like, the joy of what they're doing away from them.
Yeah. Well, don't be a joy thief. Never fucking be a joy thief. Like, that's the worst thing you can be. Is to come into a place, and again, this is the reason why I say you should know how to articulate what you're trying to do versus just being mean. Like, and if the thumper rule, like, live by the thumper rule. I have gone individuals and said, hey, I was not a positive voice, but now that you're here, I'm going to support you the best way I can. Like, I am here as your friend, as another peer, everything else like that. I'm going to tell you why, and we can have this conversation, but know that you have my backing. Like, this is the thing, but you need to understand, like, why. Yeah. And go from there and have the conversation. But if you're not ready to have the conversation, don't fucking have it.
Yeah. So somebody wants to know who the book is by. The artist.
I thought I had it in my office, but I don't.
Hang on 1 second. I think I have it over here.
Because Helga told me I should read it, and I read it, and it's pretty good. Especially for people that are like me and are highly sensitive people that take everything to heart. Knowing how to care and not
I'm
care
gonna have
is
to look it up.
very good skill.
I think I gave one of my man-at-arms the book right now, and so I don't have it with me. I will have to go look it up. Because he's got a series of books that are delightful. The guy cusses in a Scottish accent. It's fantastic. Listen to it on audiobook. It's hilarious. But I will look it up real fast.
Oh,
Oh,
we're all Googling it.
it's Mark Manson.
Okay.
Mark Manson.
It's like $12 on Amazon.
Yeah. I think I listened to it on Audible. I like to do that while I'm commuting.
Yeah, I'm currently listening to When Violence is the Answer on Audible. Fantastic.
It's a good book. What's the other one? Like Stop Doing That Shit or something like that?
Yeah, Stop Doing That Shit. Read Stop Doing That Shit before The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's the series. Also, he updates some of his language stuff. So the subtle Stop Doing That Shit is actually a good base work for like, oh, I have these behaviors and now I actually need to address them emotionally. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things to me, this kind of an inner kingdom anthropology thing, is West Kingdom really spends a lot of time looking at the different virtues and analyzing them. And there are a small handful of knights in Antir, and I should really say peers in Antir, that do that, but it's not a cultural norm here like it is there.
I think that's a cultural influence. If you have the conversations, the culture exists. So I'm betting in Antir you have it in very specific pockets. So there is somebody in that group that is charismatic and has those conversations and teaches people how to have those conversations, and then that slowly spreads, and then you start having a pocket of people that discuss those things. The West is much smaller in like our centralized population. We have a very large population and a very long travel time. I mean, we've got Japan and Alaska, and so, but within those areas, they have those very charismatic people that have that because it's a centralized culture idea in the West. It's a normalized conversation, and so I think that inner kingdom anthropology is just actually normalized here.
Yeah.
Whereas it's still developing in your culture.
Well, it's interesting because the behaviors that come out of those ideals are very strong in pockets that don't talk about those ideals at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of my husband, who is one of my white hats because, he's my husband. But he's never read any King Arthur stuff. He doesn't know anything about any of that. But he's very much into the martial arts practice and kind of the Zen aspect, and he approaches it through that medium instead of through the King Arthur milieu.
So that's actually my medium also. Is I'm not a serious, like, this is where everybody's gonna be like, boo! I'm not a serious history buff. I know the King Arthur, like the Arthurian characters, because I got asked a question about it. I got compared to Percival, who this then started the argument of a lifetime where I read so depending on the story, there's everywhere from like 11 Arthurian knights all the way to like 62 different Arthurian knights. And so I went on a binge where I read every description about the Arthurian knights, cross-compared them to both religious references in the angels and how they fall into the knightly virtues, because there's actually a bunch of god references within the Arthurian legends. Cross-compared the two, and then started the argument about how I'm Kay, not Percival. If you're going to compare me to one of the Arthurian knights, like, this is the one, so go fuck yourself. And so it was literally just, I know that stuff because I was in the middle of an argument and needed to tool up for that argument. But a lot of the virtue conversations is I was in one of the pockets. And because I was in one of the pockets, I was very exposed to those conversations versus being like a bookworm, and like going and consuming the cultural ideas around it. Also, the cultural ideas about it that we have now are very, very modern compared to the period references. The period references that we have to the virtues were literally like, stop killing peasants, you fuckers. Don't rob peasants, don't kill them, don't steal their livestock. Like, this is how we continue to have our tiny little fiefdom. Don't be a jackass. versus our modern ideals of what the virtues are very that. It comes out of biblical references. It comes out of, you know, basically the Renaissance idea of what a knight should have been. So it's a very romanticized ideal that is then reinforced through our modern perception in like fantasy novels.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's
It's,
weird.
it's very interesting to me where all this stuff comes from.
Oh yeah.
Rifkin, what do you think?
I just think it isn't cool up here. I don't know. Like, I think we do have those conversations. I think it is more about people up here just distill it down to don't be a dick. And they don't really, try to go in. It's like the whole like constitutional argument, right? You're either an originalist, like framers intent, or you like, how does it apply to modern day? And I think the only way you can really look at it is apply it to modern day and figure out what does this really mean now in this little pocket of society that when we dress up and we go and we do this thing and interact with each other, what does it mean there? So I don't know. I like Helga am not a huge saga person, or it's not my kind of reading. And I know I say this all the time, but because my job involves so much reading and so much analyzing, it's not something I do for fun anymore.
I feel you so hard.
So yeah, like that's why I listen to things on Audible. It's not that I'm illiterate. It's just it's not fun for me anymore. So not my bag.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thanks. That's been a burning question for me for a while.
So I also have a really weird like side note to the virtues is a lot of people don't like to have conversations around them because then they understand where they're failing them. Unless you're willing to
point.
It is. Unless you're willing to be self-reflective in the process of those conversations, a lot of people will avoid having them.
But I think to me, and I'm going to go back to our going down the rabbit hole. Like part of the big problem with the Shiv is that some people lack self-reflection. That's what I think.
I just write a big number 1 on like a piece of paper and be like, ding, ding, like, there we go.
And it's the people that lack self-reflection that for me are what I struggle with.
Yep. Same. 100% the same. You and I are on the same bus. You are not alone there.
But I mean, how do you change that? You can't change somebody's base personality unless they want to go there.
Ask them why.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the right person for that conversation with most of these people.
I have 100% marched into somebody's camp with 2 beers, opened the beers,
Really?
and been like, so, why? Why did this behavior just show up? And they were like, what? Like, we're going to have a conversation. I need to understand why this behavior exists out of you. Because if I don't, next time you do it, I'm going to break your jaw.
I want to like kidnap you and have you attend some Shiv meetings with my sister.
Always be articulate. Don't be a dick. Think about your actions. Like, and if you don't do that, I'm sorry. Don't be Shiv.
We could talk about this forever. And there's a good 5-year period where I didn't go to meetings because it basically like crushed my soul. So and I know I can be a good knight without going to meetings. So
yeah,
there you go. Anyway, let's look at some pictures.
Oh, that's me. I need to do that.
By the way, thank you guys so much. I'm having fun, even though we've had some seriously heavy conversations. I realize I dropped the F-bomb like sprinkles on a Frappuccino, but you know.
We embrace the F-bomb. Okay, can you see that?
Mm-hmm. It's me, so young.
So how did you hook up with Mari?
We're gonna go back to my origin story. So my first event outside of like the little area that I was in, I ran into her as princess, and she was fighting. And I was not technically allowed to fight at events yet. I wasn't gonna lie like that. And I ran into her and I said, "Oh my God, that's a nice dress." She was wearing a surcoat. I was trying to interact with her in my very awkward mid-teens way. And apparently I left an impression. And so she started communicating with me. She gave me the like, okay, cool. When you get in armor, like we can talk about fighting. Cause I was just like, I would like to learn how to fight. Like, give me your knowledge, other female fighter. Like, let me consume this. And she told me like, okay, cool. When you get your armor together, then we'll talk. And so next time we met, I had my armor together and was like, congratulations. Welcome to me being in your universe. I don't go away. I have now adopted you like the stray cat, which means I don't leave you the fuck alone. And so that's kind of, I came flying into Mari's universe at high velocity with way too much enthusiasm, and she decided to keep me. So yeah, that's how she got stuck with me, is, you know, she fed me.
Nice.
And then we got into sewing projects.
Yeah, like I know we talked about this before we went live, but we pulled this picture up for when we interviewed Mari. And then she said, oh, that's me and Helga. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That is not Helga. And then I'm like, oh my God, it is.
Yeah. That is me, and definitely my very like, so this was, I wasn't fighting at this point in time. We were still trying to figure out how to get over like my shoulder injury. So it's really weird because I have like no shoulder muscle, and I'm used to just having like really big shoulders. So every time I see this photo, I'm like,
I think it's the hair. Like the hair's all done, and it throws your frame of reference out.
mm-hmm.
Very pretty though.
Anyway. And then you do these things.
I get bored.
Well, tell us about why you decided to start shield painting, and do you have an artistic background, and what do you enjoy about it?
I've always sketched. So I'm a self-taught painter. I've always sketched and I drew in like high school. You know, I was one of those kids that had the drawings like all around their books and everything else like that. And I grew up with, or my group was very artistic. And so I, again, luck of like the dice roll in my life is I fell into the misfits group in high school, who are all like multiple degree levels now. One's a PhD that works for NASA, like very smart, articulate, broken human beings, who I went to high school with, and we always drew. It was the way that we always process stuff. And so like one of us would learn a new technique and teach the others and like go from there. And so I got into shield painting when I was having to relearn how to use my right hand. So I couldn't like support my arm out past my body. There was just no muscle mass. And so this is a great way to do something that gets all the finite muscles moving in my arm. And so I rehabbed through painting shields. Also, I was bored and I wasn't working at that point in time for the first time in my life since I was 14. And so I was like going stir crazy. So it gave me like something to hyper focus on and gave me a goal. Of like, I need to use all these muscles. This is rehab, this is PT. And then the side effect turned into it of like, I did a shield for Hans. I did this big, I did a death with the big wings down a Pavis. And it says Gone Dancing on it. And I was watching him fight with it. And I was like, that's franchise. That is very simple to do franchise. And it changes the look of a fighter's kit. It changes everything about how that kit is. You can tell the difference. A guy could walk out in super ratty ass armor and he picks up his shield and his shield is painted and presented and his helmet's clean. You forget the rest of the armor he's wearing. And so it became this thing where I was like, fuck, that's how we start fixing the franchise problem. Like, there's a reason why people painted things. This makes the field look prettier. And so I just started like literally stealing fighters' shields and being like, you'll have this back in a couple months. I'm using it as rehab. And then I would just paint another shield and it just turned into the thing. And now I've got 6 of them sitting around my house right now that I need to finish. But it's a way I can give back to the fighting community. It's also disposable, which is really my favorite part of this art. Is at some point that art is going to die. And then I get to redo that art, or I get to redesign that art with better skills. It's not going to hang around for years. It's not going to be out there forever. At some point, somebody's going to bring me that tattered shield and be like, this doesn't look like the same thing anymore. Can you make me this again? Nope, I can make it better for you. And so that's why I got into it, because I stutter over doing permanent art. When it becomes permanent, all of a sudden I'm not good enough. If it's disposable, then cool, I can crank that out.
That's totally how I feel about shield painting and actually making soft kits as well. Like
Mhm.
I'm just gonna pour everything into it, give it my best, and it's not gonna be this. My best is gonna be much better in 2 years.
Mhm.
And you should use it, and it makes such a big difference, not just for the Fighters franchise, but for the ambiance of the event. Like having beautiful shields and beautiful soft kits, it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, it's the reason why I try to keep my soft kit relatively clean. Like I've got like fighter practice tunics where I'm just like, oh, this has seen some love. But I've got like my tourney tunic that only comes out for tournaments. Because like, well, I only have one right now, so I should probably keep that one in good shape.
I think that functional art is just, I love it. I love seeing it worn. I love seeing it get destroyed. I've had people that I get close to that are like, oh, I can't wear this because I'm going to get drunk in it and ruin it. And it's like, that's the whole point.
I have
Go
one
for it.
tunic that I'm not allowed to drink in, and that's my knighting tunic.
Yeah, I've come to this realization: when I make something for somebody, I have to lose all ownership of it. Like I give it to them and it's theirs, and they'll be like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't fight in this." I'm like, "I made it for you to fight in, but you
Yeah.
choose how to do it because I'm not going to dictate to you how to use the thing I made because it's not mine anymore; it's yours."
Yeah.
But I love disposable art too. I just there's something very satisfying about knowing that it's going to get used,
Mhm.
because there's nothing worse, I think, than spending a ton of time making something for someone and never seeing it again.
Yeah. And I'll also like one of the things that it's a little bit of an ego trip walking out to a tournament field and being like, I painted 7 of those shields. Like 7 are out there right now. They're just look at the difference it made. I got to affect the ambiance of what's going on. And I actually have to honor that ego trip a little bit. Otherwise, like I stop doing it and I expect somebody else to take my place. And instead, it's actually taught me to teach other people. And so there's many more shield painters in the West now, because we geek out. We all sit down and we geek out on our current projects. And I didn't train them. I'm going to be very clear there. It just sounded like I took ownership of all their work. Totally not. Um, but because all of us will sit and geek out, we exchange techniques. We talk about the various ideas. We talk about the tricks of the trade to make things go faster. So if we're like mass producing a set of shields, we can mass produce a set of shields. But that community has grown and turned into like this art geek fest. And I'm spoiled that my protege, I have her because she came and took a shield painting class from me, and she outstrips me now. Like I love her work. Like she took this one little class from me and then just blew up, and she's done mosaic shields. She does much more period research than I do on shields, and just I love to see just how much she's taken and embodied like the couple little things and then just made it her own.
Yeah, Marquesa Laurelin up here started the shield painting. Um, I don't know, fad. It's not a fad because you do it and you inspire other people, and then they paint their shields and they want the process, and it's really cool. I love it, and we owe it to her because she shared her process with everyone. Like there's no secrets with her.
Yeah.
And she loves to see everybody doing the same thing she's doing, and it just makes such a huge difference. Like if I could tell anyone, how to up their kit or get noticed, paint your shield.
Oh yeah.
Have somebody paint it and tell them that they have artistic license to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because once you have artistic license, you're going to get a much better product.
Yeah.
And for sure.
Franchise is viral. When the knowledge is free, franchise goes viral. And I think that we as like the people that like, because both of you guys, you sew, you paint, you do like everything. Like I'm so impressed by the two of you, by the way.
I don't paint.
She could.
All of your clothing, like, good God. But like you've reached out to me a couple times with like references for the Scythians and like been like, here's the knowledge. And so both of you guys embody leaving the knowledge pool completely free and open. There's no gatekeeping to get to the knowledge. So
Yeah.
the people that want to like up their game, and the more people that up their game, the more follow suit. Like if 2 people walk out with painted shields one tournament, like there's 4 the next tournament because they're seeing that, and then it slowly takes over and grows, and the knowledge becomes widely used.
By the way, I love your shading on your shields. Like it's almost like they're airbrushed. They're very cool.
Thank you.
And I totally identify with the ego part. There have been times where we haven't been super active going to events, but I'm still sewing for people, and I'll look at Facebook pictures and I'll be like, I made that and that, and and there's like, in addition to the regalia, there's like 10 outfits that I've had a part in. And it's like, okay, anytime I feel irrelevant, I just sort of look through people's Facebook pictures and I'm like, I'm still having an impact. I still, maybe nobody else knows it but me,
Yeah.
but it still matters. And same thing. When I do costuming for royals, I get as many people in as I can, even people that have never hand sewn or never embroidered before. I give them kits and I say, this is a one of like 5 tunics for Pensick. Do your best.
Yeah.
It's better than the not tunic that they don't have right now. So
I feel that one
it.
a little hard. Like,
Anyway, all right.
The white work on that is great too.
If you ever want to sit in Geek, I will totally sit in Geek with you. I can teach you how to do that in like it's model painting like stuff that I've turned over into flat work. And I can teach you how to do that super fast if you would ever like.
Well, you're teaching up here, not this weekend, but next weekend, virtually. And I'm going to go to that. I think, is it Terra Primaria that's having you? Or I can't remember which group it is, but
I believe so. I've got the event saved, so I just don't screw up. I don't screw up when I show up. Like that's.
So as long as I don't forget to check my calendar, I will definitely be there learning all your techniques.
Yeah, big shout out to the Baron and Baroness of Terra Primaria. They're doing a lot of really great online classes.
Seriously. I'm going to go to Ava's class this weekend too. Ava's going to teach a fighting class this weekend.
Oh, I'm super excited about that class.
Yeah. Look at that.
I wish to say that I painted this shield. I did not paint this shield. This one's done by one of my very dear friends, and my guard got it for me as a step down present. And I love this shield.
Yeah, but look at your kit. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Is this your fighting tunic?
That is my fighting tunic.
Full of Stampy love.
Yeah, Elizabeth, who's currently sitting Aiden Belts, did that for me.
And she did the coat you're wearing as well.
Yes, because I am spoiled.
You get back what you put out. That's what I think.
I love this.
Me too.
That is one of my favorite pictures ever taken. Like if I'm having a bad day, that's the picture I take, or that's the picture I go look at. And the funny thing is I'm running into my guard at that point in time.
I love it because it looks like you're going to pole vault over him.
Yeah. So it was the Shiv versus Unbelts in a very small little war, and we were badly outnumbered. And the gentleman with the spear, like you can clearly see him in the photo, is a beast. The dude is he is one of our really like just smoking spearmen. I love shooting across from him. But I realized that we had like 3 spears versus me and some shield guys. And I was just like, if we stand here, we die. And so the guys are like right behind me in this photo. So they're not abandoning me. Like everybody smashed into this afterwards. I just got out of the line faster than I probably should have.
Because it looks like you're like all alone fighting the wall of men.
They're like two or 3 steps behind me because I was just like, we're going. And they were like, what? And I just went. I was just like, see you later, guys, because if we stand here, we're dying.
It looks like you're just going to hop onto his knee and just like bolt right over him. That's a good one too. And you're kicking Einar's ass.
Einar was such a fun fight that day, and I was really glad that I put some mad stick on him because he was making fun of my little shield, and I was like, okay.
Bring it.
Your helmet is gorgeous too.
Yeah, it's a Dungal. So
not as pretty as their new one.
I love that helmet so much. I've actually got it sitting next to me on my desk. But actually my squire has that helmet right now.
Scythian pony.
So I love what you're doing with the Scythian art. I mean, if anybody follows you on Facebook, they've seen it. You get such beautiful crisp lines, and you are so good at taking animals that aren't already tattoos or whatever and putting them in the Scythian style. It's very cool.
Thank you. So I'm covered in them. And so I had friends started talking to me about like, hey, would you just, I've seen yours is amazing. Would you do this for me? And I was like, well, I really like this style of art, so I might as well just learn it. And so I actually look at a lot of their gold work versus the mummy tattoos that we have, because the mummy tattoos that we have, like I try to take that feel and then go look at their gold work to be like, how did they twist the animal? Like, and the cool thing about the Scythians is that the Scythians understood joint work, which is something that always like drives me nuts in like other styles of art where they forget how an animal articulates. And the Scythians rarely forget that. And so a lot of their animals, even though they're twisted, all the limbs are actually functionally turned the correct way. And like their little feet are acting the way the tendons would have pulled them. And so that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love that art, because then I can actually make that correct and not be completely out of style.
Is that for Valora?
Yep. Me being a giant dork.
So tell me about your stole.
So that was our royal gift at Great Western last year. And I am affectionately known as Danger Muppet. And so they made me a Muppet stole. And it's so warm and I love it to death. So I still truck around at events in that. Where it goes with me to every event that I'm at. Also, I would like to note that he made it so, one, you can stick your hands in the bottom of that and keep your hands warm, because it's all done in like hand felted wool. It's insane. It's so cool, and it's constructed so well. Also, because he knows me, it holds 2 beers on either side. So it's either hand pockets or beer pockets.
Nice.
But yeah, so they made gifts that are based off of our nicknames, and so Han's got a peacock cloak because he is the apex murder peacock, and I'm Danger Muppet, so I got my Muppet stole, and I run around. That's like my party hangout stole.
People can read your mood by what you're wearing.
Pretty much.
That's when you won the Crapeau.
Yep. I've got to do that again here sometime soon. Like I just need to quit list choking and do it again.
I love that you guys are keeping that going during this.
Yeah, we didn't want to see the line broken.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
With luck, it'll open back up so we can like have more of us all beating on each other soon. Me and like my best friend. So this is Scott. He is a monster on the warfield. If you're ever across from him, do not let him get spear control. The dude's like, he's a badass with a spear. Also, he and I bonded over the fact that we've broken our backs. He wins for the amount of steel in his spine. He's fused at 7 levels, and is still out there fighting like a monster all the time.
That's amazing.
So I was just going to say that we hadn't really talked about raining much at all. I know that you have an interesting relationship with raining. I don't know if that's, I'm trying to be. So what do you like about raining? What's difficult for you? And would you like to rain again?
What I liked about raining was giving back as much as possible. The AOA is the most powerful award we have in the SCA. And it is one of my favorite to give, because it may be the only time that somebody is up in front of the royalty. And it's typically the first time they're up in front of the royalty. It's really first impression time. But in those moments, it's very heartfelt, and it's a power level that's insane, because you're just a character in a play for them. That's all you are. And the better you can play that character, the more they're going to remember it and the more it can come back. And so reigning for me is very like all encompassing. You are always on, you are always doing the thing. You are cheerleading online, you're cheerleading at events, you're cheerleading when you're at 7 o'clock in the morning walking to the bathroom because your dog said, hey, wake up, you need coffee now. And also apparently both of us need to pee. You're still on. And those impressions matter, and those impressions carry over into stories that you may never hear. And so one of the cool things about reigning is I have been a part of reigns that were legendary. And while I don't think that our reigns were legendary, they are still a part of somebody else's legend. And so that's one of the things that it's also the hard part of reigning too. But it's one of the coolest things that when you meet a newcomer and then now they're a damn knight. And they're, you know, and they tell you, like, you may not even remember them. They're like, you were my first princess. And you're like, well, shit, it's your first council. Did you bring beer? Like, I know I didn't go over this tradition giving you your AOA, but you know, hey. And so that's one of the really cool things is reigning gives you, like, it puts you in the story. And you can affect people for good or ill. The hard part about reigning, the exact same thing. But also I don't feel that I'm good royalty. Because I am a force of nature and a personality. And so there are times when I do not feel that I carry myself in a regal manner. And so I worry the entire time we're reigning that I am taking away from other people's story, because I'm sitting there with Hans, who is in his soft kit. I am sitting there in my full rig, because this is at Crown, our first reign, where Duke Morgan flew out, and I couldn't go fight roses because I needed to go be queen, and queens don't get to fight roses. We sit there and we hand out the roses. That is what we do. And so he said, well, if you put on your rig Saturday or Sunday morning, I'll fight you. So I got up Saturday morning before all the councils and I put on my rig and I sat through every council in my entire fighting rig with my helmet behind the throne. And we got done with that. Like, that night's council ended with me being like, are we done? I need to go fight. And walking out and grabbing my shit and going to fight him because he was in the middle of the field waiting for me. And so there are times where I feel because I was like that, I took away from people. Also, we dealt with some really like large chaos drama in both of our reigns. And in the second reign, the level of drama took away my ability to see what people were gifting us in the process. And I kind of lost the stardust a little bit in the second reign. And not for the people that were giving our time, just for chaotic life events where I wasn't handling myself as well as I could. And so I have a very like love-hate relationship with reigning. Some people thrive under it. For me, it's a job. It's an extra 40 hours a week of going through and making sure the next event is set and that things are organized and that we are dealing with awards correctly and that personal issues are dealt with and the, you know, bills are paid and, you know, all the officers are happy with what's going on or they have the right communication sets. And like, so I'm very hands-on, but it's also, that's very taxing. Well, like, would I like to reign again? Yes, because I think Hans is going to make an amazing princess then queen. I really think that I'm mediocre royalty. I think that he brings a level to the society where he plays the role so brightly that he contributes to other people's experiences of the SCA. He is Hans when he is reigning. He is the Apex Murder Peacock, and he talks like he's reading a fucking Playboy magazine to a bunch of girls over the phone. Like, all and he brings a level of gravitas to the throne that just lifts everybody up, and they get like they feed into it. And so I'd really like to see him in the role of the consort up there. And realistically, how that's going to happen is me getting off my ass and training and doing it. So I don't want to reign for myself. I want to reign for him. And would I want to be the consort again? I'm not so sure on that. And it's not for lack of love of the populace. It's not for lack of love of what goes on. It's because I wish I was better for them, and I wish I was doing more for them than what I brought to the table.
So again, because I don't let other people self-deprecate.
And I'm going to piggyback on what she's saying.
I think you sell yourself short. I think a strong queen and a queen who's a kick-ass fighter and that is able to prioritize that she's going to be a warrior queen is a very, very inspiring thing to a lot of people. And most of them are not fighters. So I think you sell yourself a little bit short.
And to tack on to that, I think that representation matters. And we have a very gendered representation of the Queen of Love and Beauty and femininity and this level of being regal that not all women see themselves in. And I think that it's really important that women are underrepresented in that level of our game. And to have a woman such as yourself that I think it's important. I think that kind of presence and representation is very moving and very important. And I appreciate it. So now I'm crying again and I don't know why.
Well, thank you.
Sorry.
Also, it might help if my reigns were like less drama.
Yeah, that drama sucks.
Yeah. Just both reigns had like major catastrophic things happen in them that I was just like, all the management books come out right now, like fuck. Shit.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Oh, good.
All right, I'll get us off this picture now. Sorry. There we go. There's something fun and happy.
This is me being an epic Dorcas queen. So the second reign, so the first reign we had like catastrophic SCA drama the entire time. Luckily not of our making. We just ended up cleaning up a lot of stuff and making sure that everything was running smooth, and that nobody was doxing anybody. That'd be great. And so the second reign, I kind of like cut loose a little bit more, and I was just like, fuck it. And so this is me and my head of court here. And have you guys watched Disenchantment?
Yes, it's great.
There we go. And one of my guard members dressed up as Elfo. I would like to note that my like 6'5" guardman dressed up as Elfo. And we had a mobile bar built. So I've got a bar on one of the heavy duty carts that you can put a keg in, and it's got like a wash bin, and it's got shot holders and everything else like that. And so we did part of court with me dressed like this, standing on the bar, talking to everybody, and then the bartender underneath, like if you came up into court, you got your drink. And like, what do you want mixed? Bring up your court. And so we ended up running court like that. And this was at a Sonogran Coronet, where we then the prince and princess, it was their main thing. And so when they were holding their court, I was off the bar and in their court, but we everybody agreed. This was a mutual agreement. We left the bar open at the end of court. So the bar was live the entire time, and people would bring bottles because it became the thing at events where the cart was there. And so we had people start donating bottles to it. And then we had assigned bartenders. Because if you weren't assigned bartender, leave the booze alone. You don't handle things, because we had cleaning supplies and everything else back there. So we were trying to actually keep everything nice and do not drink directly from the bottle. Give us your cup. No, you are cut off. You're too drunk. And so we had assigned people for it, but guards would take shifts running the bar. So instead of attending me, I'd be I need you to attend the bar and make sure the populace is partying. Which was just awesome. And I still have the bar. We're actually in the process of painting it right now. And it's just going to turn into the normal thing where I go to an event, the bar is here. Welcome to the party cart, motherfuckers. Also, my head of court was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Trying new styles.
gorgeous. Somebody's licking you.
Estrella's the best. All four of us were definitely on a roll that night. There was a lot of Jello shots. That was the one thing I tried to do as queen, is I tried to make sure that at wars I was 50% of the time on heavy field, 50% of the time on the rapier field. So I got rapier authorized. And this scenario, they learned that they should just kill the queen. They had a rule that you don't kill the royalty on the field. They were being very gracious. They were being absolutely amazing, but you weren't allowed to kill us. Well, that means I can just run right through the line. So they were like, okay, never mind, you can kill her. Because I was just like, I have no heavy kit on. I can like dead run with this, and I have my shield. All right.
Woohoo!
My poor rapier guard was like, we need more cardio. Liz put up with me so much during the first reign.
Oop. So cute.
Yay, shields.
So you do this show.
Between two
Yep. What gave you the idea to start doing that?
It actually wasn't my idea at all. It was my co-host's idea, Sassy, or Mistress Tulia. She came to me with this idea of like, hey, we're going to be in a pandemic. She deals with a lot of media marketing anyways. And she's like, why don't you should do this with me? Like, you're a personality. We can totally have fun asking random people questions, and people can get to know other people during the show. And I told her, hell no, you are not sticking me on camera. I am not doing this. That's anxiety inducing. And she went, no, you're doing this. And I went, okay. And that's how the show started. And then we literally were just started randomly asking people like, hey, we're going to do an interview show that's kind of like a mix between Maury and Jerry Springer, but SCA based. And there's going to be drinking. Do you want to join? And our queen said yes first. So our first interview was with our queen. And then we just kind of kept it rolling from there. And we've done some updates on like how we present the show. And then like 3 episodes in, 2 of my very close friends contacted us and were like, so, hey, you bitches need tech assistance. And we went, yes, yes, we would really like this because we're not tech. We are the personalities. We are not tech savvy. So we've got a tech crew now and like a Discord server and just there's merch. Like, so, but the show kind of just organically grew, and we continue to drink and ask people from around the known world to show up and have us ask, silly, anywhere from very serious all the way to like, we had the debate about what is the best underwear for your significant other to show up in to seduce you.
Boxer briefs. I don't know.
I am also
That's
a
my
boxer brief
favorite
girl.
I'm just gonna say that I can't talk Hans into it, but really I want him in a man thong because he has the perfect ass. It's like 2 turtles wrestling for dominance all the time. It is pert and amazing. I like nothing should be covering that. So either show up in nothing or I want a thong. Like, do not cover that butt.
So we were very inspired by your show.
What, the drinking portion or the other portions?
No, the other portion. I think after watching, and Rifkin, correct me if I'm wrong, but after watching your first show, we kind of messaged each other at the same time and we're like, hey, we should do this.
But different.
Yeah, but different. We should do something for our kingdom that, it allows people to get to know some of the people that have created our kingdom and that have made it what it is.
I think that's really cool. One, like, it's super cool that people are like inspired off the show to then make their show. And we've had a couple people reach out and be like, hey, can we kind of like steal your format? And I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, why are you even asking me? Like, go do this thing, make your content. Like, can we market you on our show? Like, send us a commercial. We will market. By the way, send us information for a commercial. We'll put a commercial on the show for you. Hint, hint.
We don't have tech crew. We don't know how to do that.
That would
I have
involve organization at a
the Google
level.
form. I then turn it over to our lovely Ula, who is making commercials for everybody.
Wow.
And so, like, we even have a commercial crew now. Like, this is just getting weird. But so I'll send you the form. You can fill it out. Then we make it. But that I love to see the amount of content out there.
Yeah.
Like, we're all bored. We're stuck at home. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Fuck yeah, I want to get to know other people. And so I think it's super cool. It's also really flattering.
It's been the biggest gift for me.
I was the same way. Like, a couple people asked me, like, oh, can we do interview with the mods or whatever? And I'm like, hell yes, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
All the content, all the time.
All the content, all the time. Like, let's get to know people from around the known world, so when we get back together, we have reasons to like not be insular.
Exactly. Look at you.
Feeling sassy that day. I spoke in a knighting and I didn't botch it.
Yay!
That's actually my favorite of the Scythian, just because the one chick is flicking the other one out.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm like, give me a minute.
Eat.
Yeah, yeet, motherfucker.
Nice.
I like his little cute tail.
I wanna do a caribou next, because there's actually some period references to the caribou. So there's a lot of caribou and a lot of Scythian like artwork. They're super common herd animal anyways, and so I actually want to do a couple caribou, because I've got a bunch of Alaskan friends that are like, can you do more moose and caribou? Yes, I can.
Really
like,
cool.
let's turn these into stamps. Have fun with them.
I can't remember what it's called, but there's a oh god, the words are leaving my. It's a deer-like animal that's got this really crazy looking nose. I'll send you a picture.
Oh, it's the plains. They're actually related to like goats, but they have the big round nose.
Yeah,
Those
are super cool. Anyway, geeky Scythian stuff.
Nice.
A mess of shields.
I was about to say, me being bored in quarantine.
So what's the story behind this one? You keep referencing it and I just am not getting the reference.
Okay, you ever seen Die Hard?
No.
Then you
You've
won't get the
never seen
reference.
Die Hard?
I've never seen Die Hard.
I'm
I'm not a Bruce Willis fan. I think he's kind of
I don't like Bruce Willis either, but Die Hard is fun.
Yeah, Die Hard has some like best one-liners ever. That says "Yippee-ki-yay" on the top of it. It's basically the closing scene of the movie. I've always wanted to do it and thought it would be like a good Greek transition. And so like in all my shields, there's hidden dicks. Because I got told by a bunch of laurels, you can't put dicks on your shield. It needs to be family friendly. So I hide dicks everywhere. And I make movie references all the time in my art. If I can convert something into like a pop culture movie reference, I will actually try to do it. And so this is like my absolutely hardcore pop culture movie reference that's the Die Hard shield. And so like I try to do the Mohawks on the Centurions have like red, white, and blue in them for the cops' lights, and like they're not wearing shoes because that's part of the movie. Is there's no reference to him having shoes on in there, and so I try to do like little things like that in my shield, so they're kind of dorky. Like right now I'm doing a Vorpal Bunny shield.
awesome. Cool. Well, now I understand why I didn't get it.
The 7.5 pound shield of doom.
Wow. That horse is masterful. It's just, I love his head, her head, whatever.
You fighting Batman?
Like me being absolutely schooled by Duke Morgan. That there was a lot of stick placed on my body that day.
And we're
right
back.
at the beginning.
We're back to me in a dress.
So before we end, because we've been going an hour and 45 minutes almost, when the events can start again, what's the thing you're most looking forward to?
Sharing beer with my friends, like just reestablishing those bonds, and like touching bases with people. I'm terrible about like online communication. And so like I've got people that I check in with, but in person it's a different experience. And so there's people that I don't regularly check in with right now, because we all kind of have our like little communication pods, that at events like I would touch and make sure are okay, or like we would interact. And so I'm just looking forward to like going back to being able to see and like touch some of my friends, that, you know, fighting, all the fighting, and some more fighting. But that like that quiet geek out time with a beer afterwards, or sitting in camp and just talking over a fire and sharing stories. The reason why really the SCA thrives is that we're a bunch of geeks and we get together and make this idea of medieval pageantry, and then share it with each other.
Cool. Do we have a final tent for this interview, Misty? I didn't make anything up.
You can. I have my cheat sheet. Where is it?
I'll ask one while you're looking. Money's no object, and what art would you pursue? What would you, and time's no object, so you can just go in this time loop with all the supplies that you need. What would you learn to master?
Probably the Scythian gold work, and how they displayed that. Being a horse culture, they carried their wealth on their body, they carried their wealth on their mounts, and so looking into the minutia of that and getting into those grave finds and then recreating those grave finds, for not only the person but the horse, and like getting like money's no object. I'm gonna go pick up one of the ponies that's the closest to the breed that they rode. I want to like understand and play with a couple of them and like look at the fittings and how they actually changed, because one of the really funny things is we think jousting horses were these big giant monster horses. They fucking weren't. They're quarter horses. If you actually put that armor on a horse, it doesn't fit on a draft horse. The draft horse fantasy is bullshit. It is Hollywood. They look like little thickly built quarter horses. And so being able to like rebuild the extant pieces and then apply them to a living animal, changes our understanding of those extant pieces, because you see how that animal moves at that size much more. And so like little weird things of like, how did these bits work and how did their tack work and everything else like that is much harder to recreate on an animal that isn't the same size because they move differently. So no object and no, I mean like money's no object and no time. I'm gonna just roll around in all that information to the point of absurdity.
Yay. Awesome.
All right. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
Yes.
That's my answer. Yes.
Yes. Like there's so many. I really, so not just fighting, I want time with Sagan. Like that dude's a training legend. And I've gotten to interact with people around him and that have influenced, like I am second generation influenced from Sagan. I would just love to sit and chat and fight, like put on armor, go fight, break down the stuff and have that experience. It's not just like a throwdown fight, but to have that like fighting training experience and just that like immersion into his mind and how he sees the fight. Like I'd give my left arm for that. So beyond that, like, are you a big scary Duke? I want time with you. Like, let's throw down and then geek afterwards. Like, are you a fighting analyst? Let's throw down and then geek afterwards. Like, I want the knowledge. I want the articulation. I want the different languages used in our fighting, in our cultures, because we don't have the same language. That's one thing, is language about fighting is very regional. And so the more language you have and the deeper your lexicon, the better you understand how to articulate our art. And I want that.
Little hidden fact, like it's pretty well known. Sagan is super, super generous with his time and he loves training. So I'm sure that between me and Sean, you could probably get that to happen. He's Sagan is awesome. Like he checks in on me all the time and he gives me books. I mean, he's amazing. He's a very caring individual.
That's awesome. Like, I really hope to meet him one day.
All right. What event have you never gone to that you would like to go to?
Double Wars.
That's a good one.
Like, Double Wars or Roni.
Rowan is one on my list too.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
We're going to go with medieval-esque. That's going to be the 13th Warrior, because man, are the one-liners in that like fantastic. The horses are actually great, though completely wrong. The armor is just a fuck story of a D&D campaign. But I love the character development, and just that's the SCA right there. Like, the 13th Warrior is 100% like, you get 13 random fighters together, like, ta-da! And so I just enjoy it because it embodies what I try to bring to the SCA, actually.
Cool. Who are your favorite people to watch fight?
I love, like, I'm spoiled and this is going to be a terrible answer. I love watching Havek fight. He was my knight. I mean, and realistically, once your knight, always your knight. But his technicals are insane. And how he presents and controls the fight is unique to our sport, because he taught himself how to fight. He's not really directly affected by the influence. Like, he's not created by another knight. He took a bunch of like random knowledge and then just put it together with his brain and produced a style. And so he controls the fight differently, and presents threats differently than a lot of people, and it's fascinating to watch how other people react to it. I really enjoy watching Duke Sven fight, actually. He is kind of similar he is a unique style to how he manipulates and controls the fight.
Are you talking 2 sticks, Sven?
Yeah, 2-6 Sven.
Cool.
Like, who else is super fun to watch fight? I mean, Hans is just a joy to watch fight, but he's better to hit. There's a satisfaction to short sticking my own husband.
I've been there.
Yeah. Shit, who else? Like, there's so many cool, like, weird fights to watch out there. And I like skilled but not traditional. Like, I'm just getting like, you can be a cookie cutter very good fight, and then there's the people that have taken it to the next mastery level, which are where they have all the same basics. They have become a unique source of our fighting style. God, I'm like drawing a blank like this. I don't know why this one's fucking me up out of everything. Thorfinn's actually really fun to watch fight. If you actually like in person on video, he's a little like stocky and standoffish in video, but like sitting next to him and watching him fight, the micro movements that he makes in his body to control the fight and to control his range is actually really fascinating. So if you ever get to watch Thorfinn fight, watch him fight from the back. Actually, like, get a side view or get the back view, because what he does to manipulate his opponents is very subtle and very interesting, because he uses a lot of breath control and he uses a lot of like minute range control. So he does a lot of these bobs, but they're still small enough that he doesn't create a lane, but he creates reactions out of other fighters. That's frustrating as fuck when you're the fighter, because you're like, why did I just do that? You didn't even move. Fuck you. God.
I love how intense and serious you're being, and the 12-year-old in me is just like, we have to watch the back view of Thorfinn.
Like, I'll sit and like, I love it when you get a fighter practice and there's 2 or 3 GoPros going, and so you can look at the same fight from multiple angles. So you can take that fight, you can lay it out on a couple screens, and you can look at it from multiple angles, and you can be like, cool, from this angle it looked like this happened, but from this angle, holy shit, that is not what happened at all. Like, this is the reason why this action happened. And so I kind of like get lost in that geeking. Oh, Duke Connor. Holy mother of God, I love watching that gorilla of a man just destroy fools.
He's fun to fight too.
Oh yeah, Connor is like joy embodied in this man that is built to cause hate. And I love drinking with him too. Like he has definitely been one of my like buds in the SCA since I've been young. He actually is the first person to knock me out in armor.
Wow.
And then he stood me back up and I was like, awesome, I need a minute. And then we get another set and he's like, oh, you'll survive in our group just fine. Like that was, I went from like, oh, that's cute little like whatever, to all of a sudden Connor was like, I keep this one. But I really, for a big dude and a very strong dude, he has a very eloquent, like eloquent is not the word to use, but how he fights and how he controls the fight and manipulates range. Yeah, and it's just also I absolutely love how he will use sheer physical intimidation right until you don't react to it, and he's like, fine, I'll use subtle bullshit. I hate you. Fine. Now I'm gonna hit you really hard. And then you block it and he's like, and it's really fun because he's very expressive in his fight. He's extremely expressive, and you can see like as his joy increases in the fight, he gets like there's like this little bounce that happens with him that's just super fun. Also his annoyed, like I'm about to destroy you, like body posture is also one of the most like slightly scary things that I've been really glad that I've never seen while I was on the other end of that stick. So
yeah, I fought him at On Tier West War last year, and I forgot people hit that hard in the ribs. Like like you get better and you just don't get hit very much. And I was just like, yeah, okay.
Did he turn you into a U shape and you just went?
No, because I was raised that you're tough and you don't let them know that it hurt. So no.
I have seen Connor squeak more grown men than I would like he'll hit them and you're just like, did you just make the dog squeaky toy sound?
Yeah, that's not something I do. I was not taught that way. You save your rolling in pain where nobody can see you afterwards.
Yeah. So in warm-ups a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, Havek knocked the wind out of me. Like flat. There was no way I could cover it up because I came from the same school of like you get hit hard and you shut the fuck up and you take it. You do not let anybody see that you've got a problem. You don't admit that you are hurt, anything else like that, because then as soon as you do, you lose street cred. And amusingly enough, I am teaching my squires the opposite. Where I'm like, I want to know. I need to know so we can continue training. Because if you start getting afraid of me because we're not addressing the problem going on and I think you're fine, we're actually going to create a very negative. I have a huge soapbox on this and I'm going to try to avoid that for now unless you want to hear it. But like I was just laying on the ground making the squeaky sound because I couldn't get air in. And I'm also laughing super hard because it was the perfect thing. And technically I kind of knocked the wind out of myself. He threw a low rib shot and he caught me right in the floating rib as I was moving that direction. And so it was just like the perfect moment in time to not have air in my lungs. But yeah, I just laid there on the ground making the stupid squeaky sound. And I'm like, my brain is like, you're not ever supposed to make this sound. This sound is weakness leaving the body.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a hero in the SCA? And if so, who is it?
Many? I have heroes that are human. And so that's one of the things that I try to always tell people is that remember your heroes are human, because if you leave them as a hero on a pedestal, when they fall off of it, you'll never forgive them. And that's not fair to those heroes. And so amusingly enough, Misty, you're one of my heroes. And I will give you why. Because I try to have many. You're one of my heroes because you have gone through a phase where when I met you, you were very locked down. And you were very much so cutting your way to being accepted or acceptable. You had created this box and this idea around yourself of what you needed to be acceptable within the community. And over the years, you have stripped that away and you have openly said, fuck that idea. Either you can accept me for who I am and what I am, or you can fuck off. And you do it in a way that is hardline yet approachable. So you have built this idea of something that other people can reach for. You didn't survive it and then tell people, well, you have to survive the same trauma I did to get here. To be worthy, you must experience my level of trauma, then we can learn how to grow out of it. Instead, you have picked up the torch and said, my trauma is my own. What I did to myself and what was done to me is my own. Let's not fucking do that again. And because of that, you're actually one of my heroes. You're somebody that I look to emulate when I feel that I am falling down. Because that is the right and noble thing to do, is be authentically yourself and do not apply what you have gone through to others to be worthy of your time. And you don't do that.
Well, I'll just say thank you and be uncomfortable.
Did I touch your toe beans?
I was just like, good.
Just like squish the toe beans just a little bit.
No, I do want to say one thing though, because one of the things that is really important to me as a woman fighter is that we elevate and encourage other women to succeed, and that this is not a competition between us, like in a way that there's only one prize. Like it's a competition in a way that we all raise each other to a new level. And when I first started fighting, it was not like that. It was very cutthroat. You were not really allowed to be friends with other women because everybody was always judging you and comparing you with each other. And I am so happy that we're not there anymore, and that there is this sisterhood because we enjoy the same thing, not because we're the same thing, right?
Yep.
And I love it. I absolutely love that, we're elevating each other and encouraging each other, and it's awesome. That's what I think.
Yep. So. We don't have to cut each other. We don't have to cut our teeth on each other.
No.
No crab bucket mentality, motherfuckers.
Right. And we aren't measured against each other. Like that's bullshit.
No.
Anyway. All right. If you had to recommend one event in your kingdom for someone out of kingdom to go to, what would it be?
Oh. Warfighter or tourney fighter?
Whatever.
Okay. So if they're a warfighter, I'm going to say go to a Miss Sinagua War. It is, especially one of the overnight ones, it's a smaller event, but the war fighting is like hilariously a blast. It's like 50 people aside. Nobody gives a fuck who's gonna win that day. Like they come up with some like straight up scenarios. It's all the way to like odd scenarios. So like one of the last Miss Sinagua Wars, we had the princesses versus the princes. So instead of it being divided up by the principalities, we actually divided it up by royalty. And we had the one of the goals was to get one princess to the other side of the warfield. So it was like capture the flag, but with a live human being. And like at one point I had one of the princesses like a rag doll just running. Like she's in full armor. They both got heavy authorized to do this. And I've just got her and I'm like, we're going, and just like ran through the line. And so there's little dorky things like that happen at Miss Sinagua, but also at the end of it, there's like, I love the West Coast mentality about war. Like, fuck, like what are war points? Like who gives a shit?
We all win because we all get to play.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Miss Sinagua War does, is it embodies this like little moment in time where you've got a bunch of new fighters out there. So like you'll see a bunch of the old guys like pair up with new fighters to be like, this is not how you run a shield wall. Like I'm going to hang with you for right now so you can stop getting bowled over. And so you see like that little bit that like lifts you up and like gives you those moments in time where you're like, that is the Stardust. Like this is the shit. Other than that, I'm going to say come to a Crown in the West. It is a different experience. And so I've been very spoiled in traveling. I've gotten to go to Ontier Crown, Aid, Aidenvelt. There's one other that I've been to. Outlands. And each crown has its own different flavor. And I love Ontarian crowns. You guys have a huge fucking pickup field. It is just like, yes. The West Crown is similar, but we have roses. And I think that is a fundamental part of our culture. And it's actually my favorite part of our culture. It teaches you, there's a little bit on the line, because whoever is bested in the match goes and delivers a rose. but there's very little ego in it. So like the knights are losing to squires and having to go deliver roses to their ladies. Hans and I's favorite one is like we try to make sure that the list table has roses and gate has roses, and people that we know don't have a fighter on the field have roses. And so it's this little thing of like it's like spreading the joy of like. And we even have a rule between the two of us is he's allowed to send me one rose and I can send him one rose, and that's it. After that, it's other people. And so I would highly recommend that experience, because it is like quintessentially, if you like distilled the West down into a thing, like our crown lists are very much so our culture, and our culture is embodied in the different aspects of each crown. Including like most crowns we have archery, and there's some that we have equestrian at. Like our crowns are not small things. It's not like you're just there to fight. Like you're there to fight and art and drink and party and like go shoot, archery and sit and watch court and do all these things. It's a big to do.
Yeah, ours are similar.
Yeah,
lots to do.
You guys have like a really awesome like. Your guys' culture is like, when I was there, it was like there's the Eric and everybody's hangout shades, and then like the camps are like almost separate.
They are separate.
Yeah, versus ours is like we have the Eric and you have your shade on your Eric, and then your camp is behind that.
Yeah.
So it's our Eric is the centralized gather point for the bardics, for the parties, everything else like that. So it gets lit up. And everybody's camp, like you stumble off the Eric into your camp. Like there is no like you must go party hunting, like go find the light in the sky. This is where we go, or follow the drums. We're all on the Eric.
Yeah, I'd like us to get back to that.
It would be nice. I think one of the reasons we don't do that is because they want Merchant's Row to be accessible. So they usually put merchant, like they'll have the list field or the Eric, like wherever you're from. And then merchants, so that you can just go outside and hit it. But it would be nice if we were a little more central. I think it would help with our nightlife, which is
KSCA nightlife overall is kind of dying off, and I'd really like to see it come back. Thus, the party bar.
Yeah, I like Duke James the Holy's taco cart. I know we talked about that before, but I'm all over the taco cart. I think that is a great idea.
Oh my God, we need the taco cart and the party bar together.
Yeah.
Or like on opposite ends of the party. You put one on one side of the party, you put the torches in between, you put the other on the other side of the party, and that way people have to travel back and forth between.
Yeah. All right. What book do you think everyone on the path to knighthood should read?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
All right, cool.
Like really, really becoming a peer means embodying who and what you are. And if you are still dictated by others, others like if they're placing an emotional burden on you and you are not ready to, either take that on with joy or tell them, go fuck yourself, that's your emotional burden, not mine. That book really talks a lot about that. And it talks about the time investment of the one true fuck that we then divide into little fucks and we apply them over way too many things. And really as a peer, you should know that, because then when somebody tells you, well, you don't fucking belong here, you can be like, I'm sorry, you don't get a part of my fuck for that, actually.
Right. It's really about how to figure out what things to care about and which to let go of.
Yep.
So, but the title
and your energy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you could change one thing about the SCA, what would it be?
Would you like the heavy answer?
Whatever you want to give us.
So the heavy answer is I would change how we report grievances. I would add in multiple layers that can be dealt with on a local level, on the kingdom level, and then on a society level. And I would create a database tracking system so we could identify and deal with basically the squeaky stair or the missing stair much better than we currently do. I would make this a universal system used over all the kingdoms. So when somebody moves kingdoms, they don't just disappear. And I would make it mandatory for all seneschals to have a basic legal training that the society would then pay for, so that they were better prepared to be in their job and handle things like this, and to know when to accelerate grievances and when grievances actually became legal matters that should be handled by mundane authorities.
I love everything about that.
Good answer.
I think the law just came out of me.
I would love there to be a more local or regional non-nuclear option for some things.
I don't think we have enough of those options within the society, so we don't give crowns or principalities or even baronies ways to handle people in a manner that says, cool, I'm sorry, like, you have caused X number of problems, you are nuked for 6 months, or you're nuked for 3 months, and this is on a society-wide level, and here are the reasons why. We don't have a lot of open communication about that. It's kind of all like hush hush. And I realize that some of that is for legal reasons, but because we don't have a stair-stepper mentality in this, and we don't deal with grievances before they become fucking problems, we then go from 0 to nuke, and then everybody's like, why are we nuking this person? We're like, well, you know, the 67 times that they've touched somebody at a party, like, they can go fuck off. They have not learned from the multiple times of being talked to. So.
All right. Last question. What do you think is the most important trait to become a successful fighter?
Spice, sprinkles, and tenacity.
Stubborn as fuck.
Stubborn as fuck. But it's actually stubborn as fuck while being willing to listen. So that's the one weird thing when people ask me about the spice sprinkles. They were like, did you just stubborn through it? No. I have been exposed to some of the greatest minds in the SCA when it comes to fighting. I've been very blessed in this, and like, I never want people to think that I have like pulled myself up from the ground and like done this all on my own. I haven't. Like, the one thing that I had for me that other people don't is I'm willing to make an ass out of myself and ask. That's where the spite, sprinkles, and stubborn come in. If I don't understand, I will seek the knowledge until I have it. I will seek, and understanding that seeking knowledge is, I'm not seeking an answer that I've already created. I'm seeking, like, literally, like, look, this is not working. I am doing X. If X is ever going to become successful, I may need to deprogram it. Like, X may only get me so far, and then I got to march back down the mountain. Like, cool, that was 6 months of training fucking wasted. And you got to remember that part of spite sprinkles and being stubborn is being willing to chuck the shit that doesn't work. Is being willing to say, I'm stubborn enough to try again. I'm stubborn enough to go ask the Duke that everybody's afraid of. Like, look, you can pull off this shot and I can't. Why? Can we sit down and talk about this? And that's one of the things that I'm going to say, that successful fighters always are seeking somebody or something that has better knowledge and mechanics than they have. And they're willing to do it in a humble manner, but in a way that is also, the more articulate you are, the easier it is to have the conversation. If you go to somebody saying, oh, I'm looking to improve to fight, my fight, and like, you don't come to a knight or a trainer and say, I'm having problems with X, Y, and Z, they literally look at this canvas of a person and they're like, well, there's a lot of things going on, so where would you like to start? Like, or they freeze because now the instructor has been asked to evaluate a very large project versus being willing to look at a finite thing. And that finite thing may be wrong. Like, just to get it to know, be willing to be fucking wrong. Part of spite sprinkles, be willing to be wrong and not be afraid to be wrong. Like, fuck it, be stubborn. Like, cool, great. Like, I'm stubborn enough to realize I'm wrong about a lot. And that's one of the things that I think that makes successful fighters, that makes high-end fighters. And that makes fighters that survive injuries and survive hardship or survive being alone and segregated from a training community. They are willing to seek the knowledge anytime they can. And they're going to be stubborn enough to do it even when it's embarrassing.
And I think that's true on a micro and a macro level. Like, and I think one of the things we do a disservice to some of the unbelts is we tell them, like, oh, you should always ask for feedback after a fight. Well, really what you should do is before the fight, say you're going to ask for feedback and what you're actually working on so that the person that you're fighting can give you something intelligent. What?
I totally have weird shit on that.
Go for it.
Be clear about what you want. And this goes for all levels. This doesn't just go for fighting. This goes for arts. This goes for service. That goes for everything. Be clear about what you're seeking as best you can. If you tell somebody, hey, I want to set a fights, they're going to fight you. If you tell somebody, hey, I have this art project, they're going to look at the art project. You want to know what most of us are going to try to do? Be motherfucking polite about everything going on. If you want feedback, tell them that right out the gate. Like, look, I don't want your crown sets. I don't want you to be nice about this art project. I'm looking for critical analyzation and feedback about what's going on. Cool, this service project is going on. I'd really like feedback about like how I crowdsourced this, or like some of my personal management skills, or how did this event go off? But don't say how did this event go off, say, you know, I really feel like we like gate kind of backed up a little bit. I would love to get some feedback or ideas on how to like solve this gate backup problem. How can I make it easier on our volunteers to do their job? Like, and that's something that we all, ruthless self-assessment, Star, Duke Sean. But that's the way to do it, is ask ruthlessly. And that's, I'm just repeating what you said, Missy, on that one, of just be willing to ask before the project is rolling, before the interaction is rolling, so that your teachers are always put in the best position to help you.
That's what I was trying to say. I just, you get better input when you set parameters.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people like have come off the list and they'll be like, oh, they asked for feedback. I didn't know what to say because I was just fighting. So I just gave them this, you know, XYZ. And I'm like, anyway.
I'm sorry, be a better trainer and tell them,
right.
No, you didn't.
Right, to say, I'm sorry, I was fighting. I wasn't watching you, you know. Whatever.
I was here to murder you.
Right.
The feedback is don't get hit with a stick.
Right. Anyway.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've had a blast talking to you. This has been great. I love that we went down a whole bunch of rabbit holes. I feel like maybe we shortchanged some of like your like milestones or whatever, but getting to explore your beautiful brain was great.
I just want to say thank you both so much for having me on. This has been a blast. Thank you for actually going down the rabbit holes with me. I realize that there are things that like you go through with the show, and there's milestones you hit. And the fact that both of you can be so organic on a show like this, and create an environment where your guests can just kind of like, fuck, I've got a rabbit hole or I've got feelings about this, and go off, makes it very real and makes the knowledge accessible. And you guys do it so successfully week after week after week. And I'm very impressed with both of you.
Thank you. It's super
so I will transition. On Sunday, I will have Duke Branos for Murder of Dukes, 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'm really looking forward to that. He is the man, the myth, the legend. And he didn't just sprout greatness. He came from humble beginnings too. So we're all going to learn about it. And then I have Lucan the next day, who will also be very interesting. And, you know, he's a legend too. And I don't know who you're talking to Tuesday. Who are you talking to, Dawn?
the Pelorican that you guys just interviewed. Sir Dom. Yeah.
And then next Wednesday, we have the one, the only Ciroc Delicious.
We're interviewing my husband, so that should be fun.
Tune in.
The guy that everybody says, why isn't that guy a Duke? That's the dude we're going to have on.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Your Grace. And thanks everybody for joining us. I know this one went a little longer, but it seems like you guys enjoyed it and hung out with us, and I appreciate that. So we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Good night.